Welcome to a casual Andy rants about a game that he's only been playing for a week and may or may not make sense in any sense or form. Diablo IV Edition, or maybe even the only edition of this rant thing that I've been making. Okay, Diablo IV, the most recent Liz game to be mired in contra... Wait, what? It's not so problematic, you say? Huh. That is something new indeed. Anyway, I don't really know where I'm going with that. I've been trying to keep up with the news, but I easily get distracted. So I might not be getting the most accurate or up-to-date news about Diablo 4. You could say I'm a casual Andy, a normie, when it comes to gaming in general. Gone were the days where I spend all of my free time playing games on PC, console, or even my phone. Trolling Google for the most optimal characters, classes, builds, and guides. Now I just play when I can. Freaking depression, man. Who knew it sucks the fun out of playing games, or just the excitement and the anticipation of playing one? On a much brighter note, Diablo 4. Not to be sappy or wax poetics, but for some freaking reason, Diablo 4 made me look forward to playing games again, and I have no concrete idea why. Okay, maybe the reason is it just pings something in my monkey brain? That part that goes, ooh, shiny whenever loot drops. Or the one that goes, whoa, whenever something flashy happens on screen. Maybe it reminds me of my childhood playing JRPGs, grinding for XP and gears. Chasing that rush of serotonin whenever you finally accomplish something. Now, I don't want to go too deep into my dark and twisted psyche. I already do it too much on the daily as it is. But Diablo 4, man, it's pretty fun to play, okay? Now, as I've said, I'm no expert when it comes to games. I'm pretty casual as it gets. A couple of hours playing, yada yada. I mean, I'm not even properly reading tooltips. And I usually wonder what random enemy attack killed my character because I was just too busy mashing keys and not paying attention to what's happening in the game. However, I want to talk about some of the things I picked up while playing Diablo 4, as well as from watching the plethora of YouTube vids and Twitch streams about Diablo. So let's get started about my ramblings and weird-ass tangents about Diablo 4. Now first things first, character creation. Pretty decent customization. Kinda makes sense that each class has their own fitting body types. And I guess as a bid to connect to the audience, I guess the devs have decided to put Asmongold, Esfand, and XQC into the game. Kinda disappointing that Asmongold and XQC are both necromancers though. At the very least, they also included chat as a form of minion following around their favorite streamer. Anyways, nothing much to say about Esfand. I mean, he's a Chad, you know it, I know it, we all know it. Now the hair textures though, they suck. Maybe it's just my shit-ass graphics card. I won't pretend that I know jack shit about gameplay and what makes it good, especially top-down ARPGs, because I don't. My only experience from the genre are pretty much from Diablo 2 by playing it, 10 plus years ago, and I'm not even sure if Hades counts. So I kind of tried researching what gameplay basically entails, but what I found instead are online reviews of Diablo 4, which is pretty much like listening to that one couple who's so in love with each other that they start thinking everybody else should be in some kind of relationship because they're gonna be so happy whenever they find said relationship. Or B, listening to that thrice divorced dad telling you that marriage sucks, having a family sucks, and you suck for even thinking about having any kind of meaningful relationship in life. But you know what? I have this big brain realization. It's called gameplay. Not game, read and follow what some random ass critic says on the internet. I mean, sure, do your research, maybe watch some YouTube vids or streams on the actual gameplay. Seriously, try to watch how the game actually plays out instead of just taking some random ass fanboy waxing poetic on how Diablo 4 is the game of the year or some random hater saying it sucks and not worth your time and money. Because what are the chances that your opinions are the same exact thing as another? I mean, geez, even twins who's genetically identical and are usually raised in the same environment have variations and nuances on how they react to things. So yeah, make your own decisions about this kind of stuff, I would say. Especially since $70 is pretty dang expensive in today's economy. Now, as a self-proclaimed casual pleb, I did the most stupid thing imaginable, jumping the gun and buying the game's early release. With my only research being, Well, research prior to making this video, is if the game is chock full of bugs like how most games are being released nowadays. And surprise! There's no game-breaking bugs on release. Or at the very least, the known bugs are not that bad or game-breaking. Now, here we are a week into playing and I'm just starting to branch out to different classes after starting out with a sorcerer. I'm actually pretty excited for some of the classes and the builds you could go for. However, a thing I'm so confused about is why some of the reviews are saying that there's a lack of build diversity in Diablo. Do they mean the meta builds? You know, the supposed top tier best of the best builds for endgame? Like that always dizzy spinning barbarian or the boner guys, or a Spanx orc or blue balls orc, or a trap rogue, or pen rogue? Or maybe even that furry smasher. I mean pulverized druid builds. Because isn't that how this kind of game with customizable build works? There's always the most optimal or best meta build to go for. But that doesn't mean trying or playing with different builds other than the top ones make the game unplayable. Or maybe it does make the game unplayable. Maybe that's where those reviewers are coming from? Or maybe the reviewers are uncreative metagaming Andes who look up guides and saw that each class only has a couple of endgame builds available for them as of the moment and doesn't want to try out those weak ass non-meta builds. Then they just go straight up proclaiming, oh, there's no other builds we could go for. Pretty much cry about it, I guess. Or maybe I'm just being an asshole about that part. Maybe they actually know what they're talking about. Maybe they came from another ARPG game with better customizable characters and classes and are used to having a bit more complexity when it comes to builds. Because not gonna lie, I'm pretty sure that Diablo 4 have a pretty accessible skill system. Or at least as a casual gamer, I didn't have difficulties acclimating with how to build my character. And if we're gonna go down the rabbit hole known as mental gymnastics here, I guess that's pretty much the inherent limitations of ARPGs. Or just games with different classes and skill builds in general. Seriously, how many variations of sword, axe, bow, magic user types you could go for? And how do you even properly balance them out so they could have so many varieties of builds that you could go? Even some games which tries to innovate still go back to that same old framework. And maybe some of those that are out of the box, so to speak of, didn't even necessarily make that big of an impact. But hey, before we digress any further, a quick thing about gameplay balancing. Maybe it's just me, but the thought of having a perfectly balanced class system makes me think that it also removes the point of building or playing other classes, because what's the point if they're all the same in the end? Sure, you could say the same for games with meta builds. Oftentimes people would just gravitate towards the meta since they are the best of the best after all. But at the very least, people who want to have a challenge or maybe just try another build could still do so. Like in the case for Sorcerer, quite sure that all of the elements are viable early, and while fire builds do start to fall off later on, you could still go either lightning or ice shards if you want to go down the optimal routes. Or routes, what the heck? What I'm getting at is there's a difference between a game having all classes and builds being the exact same thing, and a game having builds that are viable. Weaker maybe than the meta, but still viable. And if we take into account the game being out for a week? People sure are acting like there would be no balancing changes at all. Maybe buffs and nerfs to certain classes? I mean, it's supposedly a live service game after all, backed by the fact that multiple hotfixes and minor updates has been released already. Now, don't go about saying that they had a beta test, they should fix this and that already. Just the fact that Diablo was released in a non-broken and an actually playable state probably means that the beta test did some work detecting and fixing some of the worst of the bugs, right? Okay, maybe that's a pretty low bar to go for, but you can't deny that Diablo 4 is starting off pretty dang good. Hopefully it only gets better from here. I mean, it's Blizzard after all. Now, speaking of updates and patches, most of them has been nerfs, sure, which is really annoying. Especially the ones that reduce the number of elites in the loot caves. I understand that the purpose is for the players to try other dungeons and not just repeatedly run the same one over and over. But on the other hand, if they make all dungeons pretty much the same, then what's the point of having different dungeons then? Players will then just go for the dungeons closest to a waypoint or the least annoying ones to clear. And we circle back to the same old problem of players only choosing that one specific dungeon because it's more convenient. Might as well delete all other dungeon entrances and then have one entrance that randomly generates every time you enter it. Okay, that's an exaggeration by the way if you missed that. And since we're already on the topic of annoying things in Diablo 4 that definitely needs improvement, equipment vendors suck. They're overpriced and sell worse items than what you probably already have. Horses needs fixing, fine-tuning even. Why do they slow down and do that weird sliding thing whenever you first ride them? But the most annoying thing about the horses is the cooldown when you dismount. It just makes traversing those weird-ass barricades or obstacles so annoying. World bosses, it confuses the heck out of me. Fought that chicken-dragon hybrid pestilent creature 3 times in a row. I know they cycle every 6 hours or so, but the question is it a random spawn every time? Or am I just unlucky with it? Am I being stupid? I don't know anymore. I wish stashes could have a search function as well, especially when you start filling them up with aspects. Just a quality of life change to make it easier finding aspects that you might need. Also, another thing about the aspects, I wish you could use them for another thing. I know I'm just pretty bad with keeping track of my aspects that I extracted, but I'm pretty sure I already have multiple dupes of them. And I'm not even World Tier 4 yet. And that's just some of the things on top of my head as of the moment, which annoys the F out of me. There's definitely a lot more out there, so I guess comment down below and what other things annoys you in the game to no end. But I would assume once I reach endgame or just World Tier 4, the stat rerolling thing is going to be a nightmare. Ha! Get it? Nightmare? Like the dungeons? Okay, moving on. Probably a minor annoyance or let's say inconvenience is the need to have an internet connection to play. But on the other hand, it's 2023. And I personally live in a third world country and we barely have any connectivity issues. Although can't say the same for other places, which might not actually have the best of connections. But the thing is, yeah, why can't we play offline? What if we're traveling and we want to play on our laptops, right? And I guess that's pretty much all my ramblings about Diablo 4. Was it worth spending $100 to play early? Well, personally, I don't regret it, which is telling since I pretty much always have a severe case of buyer's remorse. Dude, it took me my phone screen to be in literal pieces and the LED to bleed before I replaced it. And I felt bad for almost a week, even though I desperately need a new phone. Playing Diablo 4 is fun. It's not perfect, obviously. And there's a bunch of improvements that still needs to be implemented. But the game is good as of now. And a quick note, the story, pretty decent. Maybe a tad predictable, but pretty interesting still. No, I probably won't delve too much into the story as the ramblings of mine is already getting out of hand as it is. And for those who think $70 is too much for a game with Battle Pass and an in-game store, yes and no. I mean, if you just take into account inflation, the prices of game nowadays should be way higher. I personally don't care about cosmetics, which is what the Battle Pass is supposed to have. Hopefully it stays that way and none of those buyable power BS. But most important thing of all, hopefully future patches and updates bring improvements to the game. And still, it's up to you to decide what you think of the game. Is it good, is it bad, or at least decent enough? And if you haven't bought it or played it yet, well, I guess do more research or something. I don't know, usually that's how it goes, right? You watch other people play. If you think it's exciting and you want to try it out for your own, then good. But hey, that's it. Bye for now. Like and subscribe if you enjoy or want to see more. And stop by my Twitch stream sometimes. Link down on the description below. Stay safe and goodbye. What the heck did I just do?